The auction hall echoed with the sound of the gavel. "Sold to the human," the auctioneer declared, his voice sharp and mocking. The crowd burst into new waves of laughter, their voices filling the air like thunder. Aliens of different shapes and colors pointed at the human, some sneering, some whispering, some shaking their heads. To them, this act made no sense. To them, the human was a fool. But the human walked forward without hesitation, his boots heavy on the metal floor. Each step echoed in the silence between cruel laughs. The cloak he wore brushed against the ground, hiding most of his figure. Yet his presence was heavy, drawing eyes whether they wanted to look or not. The girl on the stage shrank back, unsure what to feel. Her heart beat fast, her breath caught in her throat. Could this human be another cruel master? Or was there something else behind those silent eyes? The auctioneer smirked as the human approached. "You pay now, human," he said. "No refunds, no returns. This creature is yours." He spat the word creature with venom, as if she was less than dust. The human reached into his cloak, drawing out a pouch of credits. He tossed it onto the table with a motion that was calm, almost casual. The coins clattered loudly, echoing in the hall. The crowd went quiet for a moment, hearing the weight of the pouch. It was not a trick, not a joke. The human had paid in full. The girl stood frozen, her hands shaking. Her mind spun with confusion. Why would anyone spend real money on her? She had been told again and again that she was worthless. And yet here was someone who paid without bargaining, without mockery, without shame. The human turned his gaze to her, and with a steady hand, he reached forward. Slowly, he lifted the chain that bound her wrist, his grip firm yet gentle. The cold metal unlocked with a snap, falling to the floor. The sound was small, but to the girl it was louder than thunder. For the first time in her life, she was free of the auction chain. The crowd murmured louder, their voices sharp and mocking again. "Why free her?" one alien shouted. "She's not worth it," another hissed. "Humans are strange, too soft," a third whispered. But under their laughter was something else. A thin thread of unease, a nervousness that spread quietly from one to another. Because though the human had not spoken much, his presence was different. There was a weight to his silence, a strength that could not be laughed away. The girl looked at the human, her lips parting but no words coming out. Her voice had been buried by years of mockery, her courage broken by countless days of being treated as trash. Now, faced with this stranger who had claimed her, she felt a spark of something she could not name. Hope, maybe, or fear, or both mixed together. Her eyes searched his face, and for the first time she saw it clearly. His jaw was strong, his skin marked by scars that spoke of battles long past. His eyes were dark, deep, and steady. There was no laughter in them, no cruelty, only an unshakable calm. The auctioneer, trying to regain control, clapped his hands. "Sale is finished, business is done. Take her and leave. Human, you make room for real buyers," he said. But his words carried less weight than before. Because the human did not look at him, did not answer him. His focus remained on the girl, as if the rest of the hall had vanished. He leaned down slightly, his voice low and firm. "You are safe now," he said, each word heavy with meaning. The girl trembled, hearing those words, words she had never known could exist. Safe, the word repeated in her mind like a distant song. Safe, as if it was something real, not just a dream. The crowd grew restless, their mocking turning into uneasy whispers. Some aliens laughed harder, trying to push down their discomfort, but others began to step back, feeling a pressure in the air. It was as if the hall itself was holding its breath. Because though the human had done nothing but buy a girl and speak a few words, something about him was different, something dangerous, something undeniable. The girl clung to his arm, uncertain, still trembling, but unwilling to let go. The human placed his cloak gently over her shoulders, shielding her from the staring eyes. It was a simple act, but it silenced the nearest voices. In that moment, the hall of mockery felt colder, smaller, weaker. The auctioneer looked around, his grin fading. He could not explain it, but he felt it too, the shift in the air. The human gave a final glance at the crowd, his eyes sweeping over them. Many looked away, not daring to meet his gaze. And without another word, he turned, guiding the girl down the steps. His stride steady, his presence unshaken. The crowd parted before him, their jeers now whispers. Some tried to laugh, but the sound came out thin. Others stared in silence, wondering who this human was, and why his choice felt like the beginning of something greater. Someone who had claimed her not for price, not for ownership, but for purpose. And deep inside, though fear still lingered, a fragile spark of hope began to grow. But outside, in the shadows of the market, unseen eyes watched the ship depart. Figures cloaked in darkness whispered among themselves. "The human has taken her," one said. "He does not know what she carries," another replied. They watched the ship vanish into the stars, their voices cold. "Follow him. Do not lose them. The girl is not worthless. She is the key." The night swallowed their words, but danger had already begun to move. The ship's engines rumbled softly as the human prepared it for flight. Lyra sat near the corner of the cabin, her small hands gripping the edge of the seat. She watched him with wide eyes, her fear mixing with wonder. Every button he pressed, every lever he pulled seemed like magic to her. The dull light from above made his scars more visible, lines of battles etched into his skin. She wanted to ask about them, but her voice refused to come out. Instead, she simply stared, memorizing the face of the one who had claimed her. Outside, the docking bay grew restless. The crowd had not left, and the news spread quickly. Aliens gathered in groups, pointing toward the human's ship. Their voices carried anger, confusion, and greed. To them, no human had the right to walk into their market and take what they mocked as worthless. Whispers grew into shouts, and soon the noise reached the guards. Steel doors groaned as they began to close, trying to trap the ship inside. The human looked at Lyra once, then turned to the controls. With calm precision, he powered the engines. The ship vibrated, the hum growing louder, the metal beneath them alive. Lyra held on tighter, her heart racing with the sound. Through the small window, she saw the crowd pressing closer. Dozens of faces sneering, shouting, demanding the human step out. Some held weapons, others only fists, but all carried hate in their eyes. Suddenly, the comm panel lit up, crackling with static. A voice from the guard tower came through. "Human, stop this launch. Return the creature. She is not yours." The human's hand hovered over the comm button, but he did not answer, his silence heavier than words. He pushed the throttle forward. The engines roared, the ground shaking. The crowd stumbled back, dust swirling in the air. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide, gripping the seat until her knuckles turned white. The docking doors lowered faster, heavy steel grinding down. If they closed, the ship would be trapped inside. Guards shouted, rushing forward with shock batons and rifles. The human narrowed his eyes, his hands steady. At the perfect moment, he pressed a hidden switch. Panels along the ship's side slid open, revealing old but powerful cannons. They glowed with restrained fire, humming with energy. The sight froze the guards in their tracks. Whispers spread like fire. "This is not a trader's ship," one muttered. "This is a warship," another gasped. Lyra's eyes widened, her breath caught. She had never seen weapons like this, never felt such power so close. Her fear twisted into awe. Who was this human really, and what kind of ship did he command? The cannons did not fire, but their glow was enough. The guards stepped back, the crowd hesitated. Even the auctioneer, who had rushed outside to shout, stopped mid-word. The human spoke at last, his voice calm, broadcast through the calm. "She belongs to no one, and I do not ask twice." The words echoed through the bay, firm as iron. Then the ship surged forward, sliding beneath the half-closed gate. Metal scraped as the edges barely cleared, sparks flying into the night. And then they were free, soaring into the sky. Lyra pressed against the window, watching the market grow smaller. The laughter, the mockery, the chains, all left behind in a shrinking patch of light. For the first time, she felt distance between herself and her prison. Her chest tightened with a strange new feeling. It was not only fear, it was something brighter, something fragile. Hope. The human adjusted the controls, his face calm as ever. But his eyes scanned the sensors, watching for movement. Because he knew the escape was too easy. Enemies would not let them go so quickly. Already the radar blinked, faint signals tracking them from afar. Shadows in the stars, waiting to follow. Lyra looked at him, her voice breaking through at last. "Why me? she whispered, her words almost lost in the hum of the engines. The human glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Because you needed someone, he answered, his voice steady. And I was there. The simplicity of the words stunned her. No one had ever said such things to her. No one had ever cared. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were not from shame. She lowered her head, clutching the cloak he had given her. In her heart, something heavy began to melt. Far behind them, the girl walked at his side, her small steps quick to match his long stride. Her chains gone, her shoulders covered, her fate changed. She did not understand it. She could not believe it. But for the first time, she allowed herself to hope. The human had claimed her, not as a master, not as an owner, but as something else, something she could not yet see. And though the crowd laughed, though the hall mocked, a seed had been planted, a promise waiting to grow. And the universe itself seemed to lean closer, waiting for what would come next. The metal floor echoed under the human's boots as he guided the girl out of the auction hall. Behind them the crowd still murmured, half mocking, half whispering in unease. But the human never turned back. His eyes stayed forward, his steps strong. The girl held onto his cloak, her small hands gripping it tightly, afraid to let go. At the edge of the platform, two guards moved to block their way. Large creatures with thick armor and sharp tusks, their voices heavy with threat. You cannot take her, one growled, his breath hot and foul. She belongs here, she is property, the other added, his hand reaching for his weapon. The girl gasped, fear rising again, her heart racing, her body trembling. She had thought she was free, but already chains of fear wrapped around her mind. The human stopped, standing tall between her and the guards. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he looked at them with eyes so steady that silence fell. She belongs to no one, he said, his voice calm but powerful. The words cut through the hall like a blade, sharp and final. The guards shifted, uneasy, their tusks grinding as if they wanted to push forward. But they hesitated, because something about this human was wrong. Not weak, not soft, not what they had expected. The auctioneer shouted from the stage, trying to recover control. Let him pass. He is paid. We do not fight paying customers, he barked. The guards grumbled, but stepped back, their eyes narrowing with suspicion. The path opened, and the human continued walking, guiding the girl with him. Her legs wobbled as she stepped down from the platform. Every step felt like walking into a new world, strange and frightening. She could not understand why this stranger protected her, but she could not deny the warmth of the cloak on her shoulders. For the first time in her memory, she felt shielded from the cruelty of others. As they left the hall, the whispers grew louder. Who is he? Some muttered. Why waste credits on nothing? Others said. But a few voices were quieter, sharper. They say humans are dangerous, one alien whispered to another. They say one human can break armies, came the reply. The girl's ears caught these words, and her fear mixed with wonder. Who was this man, and why did he choose her? Outside, the night air was cool, the stars faint above the metal rooftops. The market noise faded behind them, replaced by the distant hum of ships. The girl breathed deeply, as if for the first time. Her lungs burned with the sharp air, but she did not mind. She looked at the human walking beside her, his cloak heavy, his figure strong. She wanted to ask questions, wanted to speak, but her voice failed her, broken by years of silence. Instead, she simply walked close, afraid that if she let go, she would vanish back into chains. The human paused near the docking bay, turning his gaze down to her. His eyes softened slightly, though his face remained calm and hard. What is your name? He asked, his voice low, steady. The girl hesitated, her lips trembling, and used to the sound of kindness. Finally, in a whisper, she spoke, Lyra. The word felt strange on her tongue, as if it had been forgotten. The human nodded once, as if the name was already known to him. Lyra, he repeated, firm, making the name sound real again. She felt her heart stir. The sound of her name carried not with mockery, but with strength. He did not give his own name yet, not here, not in the open. Instead, he guided her forward, toward a silent ship waiting in the shadows. Its hull was dark, scratched by battles, but strong. The girl's eyes widened. She had never been near a ship before. Her steps slowed, fear mixing with awe. The human stopped again, kneeling slightly so his eyes met hers. "You are safe," he said again, calm and unshaken. She wanted to believe, her chest tight with emotions she could not name. She nodded weakly and followed him up the ramp. As the doors closed behind them, the outside noise faded into silence. For the first time, the girl was away from the cruel eyes of the crowd. She looked around, her fingers brushing the metal walls. It was not warm, it was not soft, but it was hers now. A place away from chains, away from laughter, away from shame. She turned to look at the human, who stood at the controls. For a moment, she saw not just a rescuer, but something larger. In the shadows of the city, ships began to rise. Silent hunters, following the human's trail. Their engines burned with greed and vengeance. The girl was not forgotten. The game had only just begun. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window. The ship cut through the black sky like a silent blade, its engines humming with steady power. Lyra sat close to the glass, her small fingers pressed against it, watching the galaxies drift by. She had never seen the stars this way before, never so near, never so bright. They felt alive, endless lights scattered across the darkness, and for the first time she wondered if freedom looked like this. The human moved about the cabin, checking controls, adjusting readings, making sure the ship stayed on course. He worked with calm movements, every gesture precise, every decision steady. The air inside was quiet except for the hum of the engine and the faint buzz of the lights. Lyra kept sneaking glances at him, her mind full of questions she was too afraid to ask. Finally, she whispered, her voice trembling, "Why did you save me?" The human did not answer right away. His eyes remained on the glowing screens. At last he said, "Because no one else did." The words were simple, but they carried weight, a truth that cut deeper than she expected. Her chest tightened, her throat thick. She lowered her gaze, unable to hold back the tears that burned in her eyes. He noticed, though he said nothing. Instead, he walked to a storage unit and pulled out a small pack. He placed it on the table in front of her, opening it carefully. Inside was food, real food, warm and filling. Lyra froze, staring at it in disbelief. She had been given scraps all her life, barely enough to keep her alive. Now before her was a meal prepared with care. Her hands shook as she reached out, hesitant as if it might vanish if she touched it. "Eat," the human said simply, his voice calm but firm. She nodded quickly, tears falling as she took her first bite. The taste was unlike anything she remembered, warm, rich, and real. For the first time, she ate without fear of someone snatching it away. When she finished, she leaned back, her stomach full, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. The human returned with a folded blanket, placing it around her shoulders. The softness shocked her almost as much as the food. Her whole life she had been treated as dirt, laughed at, insulted, chained. Now she was being fed, warmed, and given comfort by someone she barely knew. She wanted to ask his name, but her body was too tired. Sleep pulled at her, heavy and unavoidable. Her head leaned against the wall, her eyelids fluttering. Before long, she drifted into the first peaceful sleep she had ever known. The human watched her quietly, his expression unreadable. He returned to the pilot's chair, his eyes scanning the stars. But his mind remained alert, his hand always near the controls. Because though the girl slept, he knew danger was close. The sensors flashed faint signals now and then, distant blips trailing them through the void. He had expected this. He knew the girl was not just a worthless prize. The crowd's laughter had been a mask, a cover hiding something they wanted to keep forgotten. And now that he had claimed her, they would not let her go easily. The ship glided past an asteroid belt, rocks spinning in silence. The human shifted course, weaving through them like a shadow. He moved the ship with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. Lyra stirred in her sleep, but did not wake, safe beneath the blanket he had given her. For a moment, the cabin felt like a fragile shelter against the endless dangers outside. He let himself glance at her once more, her small frame curled beneath the blanket. Her breathing steady, her face soft, no longer twisted by fear. In her, he saw not weakness, but a strength hidden under years of cruelty. And though he did not say it, he made a silent promise. She would not be abandoned again, not while he still breathed. Far behind them, in the darkness of space, Engines flared to life. Multiple ships moved in formation, hunters following the trail. Their captain spoke in hushed voices, cold and hungry. "The human has her, but he cannot keep her," one said. "She is worth more than he knows, more than even she knows," another answered. Their weapons armed, their courses locked. The chase had begun, and the girl's new freedom was already under threat. The ship drifted quietly through the void, stars glittering all around. Inside, Lyra still slept, curled beneath the blanket, her small chest rising and falling softly. The human sat in silence at the controls, eyes fixed on the blinking signals on his scanner. Faint traces of ships appeared and vanished, never too close, never too far. Hunters, patient and waiting. He adjusted the ship's course, weaving between debris fields and fading star paths. His movements calm, but his mind sharp. He knew he was being followed. He had known from the moment they left the market. The girl was not worthless, no matter what the auctioneer had said. Something about her made them chase, and he would find out what it was. Far away, aboard one of the hunter ships, a captain leaned forward in his chair. His skin was rough, dark as stone, his tusks gleaming under dim red lights. "Keep distance," he ordered, his voice like gravel. "The human is dangerous. We strike only when he is weak." His crew nodded, their eyes locked on the glowing trail of the human's ship. They knew his kind, and they feared him, but greed was stronger than fear. In another ship, cloaked in shadows, a different figure spoke. This one was smaller, thin and sharp, with eyes that glowed yellow. "She does not even know what she is," he whispered. "If the human learns, it will be too late." His words carried across the room, filling his crew with unease. They looked at the girl's image on the screen, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of her own worth. Back on the human's ship, Lyra stirred in her sleep. Dreams filled her mind, strange visions of light and whispers. She saw faces she did not know, places she had never been. A deep voice echoed in the dream, calling her name. "Lyra," it said again and again. She woke suddenly, her eyes wide, her skin glowing faintly in the dim cabin. The human turned at once, his eyes narrowing at the light flickering across her skin. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat made of stars. She gasped, covering her arms, ashamed, but the glow would not fade. He said nothing for a long moment, his gaze steady. Then at last he spoke, his voice calm. "You are not what they said you were." Lyra shook her head, tears forming. "I don't know what I am," she whispered, her voice breaking. "All I know is that they laughed, they mocked me, they told me I was nothing." Her words came fast, heavy, her body shaking. The human knelt in front of her, his presence grounding. "You are not nothing," he said firmly. "Whatever they saw, whatever they wanted to hide, you are more." The glow in her skin softened, responding to his voice. For the first time, she did not feel shame for it. But outside, the hunters had seen the same thing. Their sensors captured the flash of her light. Alarms rang across their ships, voices shouting. "There it is, proof," one growled. "She carries the spark," another hissed. Now the chase was no longer about profit, it was about power. They armed their weapons, their engines burning brighter. Soon they would close in. The human returned to the controls, his jaw tight. He knew the hunters would not wait much longer. Every second mattered now. He glanced at Lyra, who sat trembling but no longer hiding. Her glow faint but steady, her eyes wide with fear. "Stay close," he told her, his voice calm but edged with steel. "They will come for you, but they will have to go through me first." The cabin trembled as the scanners lit up. Dozens of ships closing in, surrounding them in the dark. Red dots filled the screen, forming a net of hunters across the stars. Lyra gasped, clutching the cloak tighter. Her heart raced, but she did not look away. For the first time, she believed him. This human would not abandon her, even if the whole galaxy came to take her back. Outside, the hunters moved into position, their weapons ready. Inside, the human's hand hovered over the controls, steady as stone. The silence before battle stretched thin, heavy, and endless. Lyra's glow pulsed brighter, her eyes locked on the stars. And the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the clash to begin. The hunters closed in from every side, their ships glowing red against the endless night. The scanner flashed with warning after warning, each marking danger. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, her eyes wide, her glow flickering nervously. She could feel their hunger, their hatred, as if the stars themselves had turned against her. The human stood at the controls, his face calm, his hands steady. He did not panic, he did not rush, he simply watched the formation of enemy ships. Every move he made was measured, every breath slow and firm. He was outnumbered, surrounded, but not broken. "Why do they want me?" Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. Tears slid down her cheeks as she stared at the scanner. "I don't understand. I never asked for this. I never wanted this." The human glanced at her, his eyes sharp but not unkind. "They want you because they see only power," he said. "But I see more than that. I see you." The words struck her harder than the fear. She looked at him as if hearing something impossible. No one had ever said she mattered, not like this. The hunters sent a signal through the comms, their voices harsh and demanding. "Human, surrender the girl. She does not belong to you. She is ours. She is the property of the galaxy," another snarled. "She carries the spark, and it belongs to us." The human pressed the comm button, his voice steady and unshaken. "She belongs to no one," he said, "and I will see you burn before I hand her over." Silence followed. Then the hunters roared in anger. Weapons charged, engines howled, ships moved into attack. The void lit with flashes of light, the first shots fired. Bolts of energy streaked across the black sky, tearing past the human's ship. The cabin shook, alarms screamed, sparks flew across the panels. Lyra cried out, clutching the seat, her glow flaring brighter with fear. The human moved the ship with impossible precision, weaving between blasts, diving through fire, rising above the chaos. His hands worked like they were part of the ship itself. Every turn perfect, every escape razor-thin. But even with his skill, the hunters pressed closer. There were too many, their numbers overwhelming. A blast struck the hull, shaking the entire cabin. Lyra screamed, her glow bursting across her skin like fire. The human turned, his eyes meeting hers. "Do not be afraid," he said, his voice a stone against the storm. "You are not alone anymore." His words calmed her, steadying her heart. Her glow shifted, no longer wild, but strong, pulsing like a star. The hunters saw it too, fear cutting through their greed. "The spark is awake," one shouted. "If she learns to use it." Another cried, but his words ended in static as the human's cannons fired. The ship roared with power, blasts tearing through the void. Hunters scattered, ships exploding in waves of fire and smoke. The human's silence broke into action, each shot precise, each strike final. He fought not as a traitor, not as a wanderer, but as a warrior who had lived through 1,000 battles. Lyra watched in awe, her fear changing into something else. Her glow pulsed in rhythm with the ship, as if answering his will. The hunters realized too late that this was no ordinary fight. Together, the human and the girl were something far more dangerous than they imagined. Finally, the remaining hunters broke formation, retreating into the black, their voices filled with rage and fear. "This is not the end, human," one hissed through the calm. "She is ours, and we will come again." Then the stars swallowed them, their ships vanishing into the dark. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the engine. Lyra sat trembling, her glow dimming slowly. Her eyes lifted to the human, filled with confusion and gratitude. "They will never stop," she whispered. "They will always come for me." The human turned, kneeling so his eyes met hers. His hand rested gently on her shoulder, firm and steady. "Then let them come," he said. "They will never take you, not while I live." His voice carried the weight of a promise, unbreakable and eternal. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but this time she did not hide them. She whispered, almost afraid of her own words. "No one ever wanted me before." The human's gaze stayed locked with hers, his voice quiet but firm. "You are wanted, you are safe, and you are mine to protect, forever." The glow on her skin softened, warm and steady. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. Outside, the stars stretched endless, silent witnesses to the promise made inside the small ship. But in the dark edges of space, shadows still moved, enemies still planned. The battle was not over, it had only begun. Yet for now, Lyra slept under a blanket of safety, her fate forever changed. And beside her, the humans sat in silence, a guardian against the endless night.